Brandi Peters, 27-year-old woman with 3 kids, Tamaya and Tanaya Peters, and Javante Segura were all found dead in their own home on the south side of Tallahassee. When a crime as brutal as this happens, the first thing investigators try to find out is who could have done this. But firstly, investigators must inform the next of kin of those that have been found deceased. For the twins, it was a man named Antonio Anthony, but for Javante Segura, it was Mr. Aaron Segura. When investigators locate Henry Segura, they only find his mom at home. She then called him and told him that police wanted to see him for questioning.
Henry, do you have your ID on you?
Yeah, so I found out, I'm guessing why, Brandi Peters. Yeah, the girl who braids my hair. She braided my son's hair. Her daughter is a godchild to a girl that lived right next door to Brandi. And I'm guessing Brandi's, no. The girl braiding my hair, her daughter is some girl that lives next door to Brandi, is her god mom or something like that. So she said that Brandi's mom and them came over to their house and told them this morning. When I called her about getting my son's hair, she told me.
Okay, what'd she tell you?
That Brandi and the kids, someone killed them this morning.
That's true.
Second son I lost.
Second son you lost? What happened to your first son, if I may ask?
He just didn't wake up one morning, 11 months old.
The SIDS or?
He had breathing problems. He was born premature. He was home doing fine. He was on the breathing machines and all that stuff. One morning he just didn't wake up.
Was that here in Tallahassee?
Yes, sir.
Sorry to hear that. And I'm sorry for what happened today. Do you have any idea who would want to hurt these people?
She, girl Pint, the one who does my hair, she was saying they thought my son was with some other guy, and she said that the 2 girls, the kids, were killed. My son wasn't found in the house, and she said she think that he's with some guy who she's saying is his daddy, and something like that.
Okay. Let me ask you this.
I don't know for sure.
Is Dewan your son? No.
Javante.
Javante, is he your son?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How old is Javante?
3.
Okay. Javante is in the house.
He was in the house. He in the house? Well, I mean, yeah, he was in the house, found in the house.
He's in the house.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to tell you, but he's passed away.
Yeah, she told me that they found the girls and the boy wasn't in the house. They think that he's with his dad or some guy she's claiming was his dad or something. So when the girl Pint, who's doing my son's hair, then when I went back over there, she said no, they did find him in the house. So I don't know what else she said.
Over there? Do you know Pint's real name? Do you know, how do I get a hold of her?
Well, she's the one who, she's my son's, she's braiding my son's hair. Her daughter is, I don't know, her daughter is the girl who knows Brandi, godmother. And she knows, I don't know, I guess Brandi's mom must have went over there this morning and told them the news, so she called Pint and told her.
And you just happened to be there today, and
No, I called Pint to make an appointment to get my son's hair done.
you show up.
And she told me on the phone, but she said that my son wasn't found there. He wasn't there. But when I got there, she said he was in the.
And Javante is your child.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Although people mourn differently, this was the first red flag for investigators, as Henry Segura did not shed a tear after finding out his son was also murdered. Henry Segura worked as a welder, which means he made a lot of money. However, after speaking to many sources, investigators found out that Henry Segura owed over $20,000 in child support for Javante Segura. But during this time, Henry Segura claimed he wasn't in a very good financial situation, as he had just been shot and he was out of work. Struggling financially, Henry Segura decided to take this to court and show that he was very involved in the children's lives and also paying Brandi's rent a couple times.
With that.
With Brandi and Javante, it was a little bit different from when I had judgment against me with Tamika. With Brandi and Javante, I lived in the house with her. I was there when Javante was born. I had receipts of the money orders when I gave her cash for the money with the money orders. I had receipts for clothes and all the clothes I brought him, Pampers I brought him. So that would have proved and showed to the judge that I was in his life from the day he was born up until the 3 years when she put me on the child support, when the paperwork came through. So that would have reduced the $20,000 arrears that they tried to put on me drastically.
And how far did it reduce it? Didn't it go down to 8,000 or 9,000 or so?
No, with Tamika it did, yes. But I'm saying with Brandi, I never had a chance to go to court.
Okay. Did you plan to at some point go to court?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah,
and what would you have hoped to accomplish by going to court?
Like I said, I would have gotten it all reduced because I had the money order receipts, I had receipts for Pampers, I had receipts for all the clothes and stuff I had brought. I even paid her rent a couple times. It was real cheap because she was in Section 8, but I even had receipts when I paid that.
When asked to provide an alibi for the day of the murders, Henry Segura said that he dropped his kids off to school and then was working on his vehicle for the rest of the day, and even suggested investigators check his cell phone. After investigators try and corroborate Henry Segura's story, they find out lie after lie after lie. He had a second cell phone and was also out of the house the day of the murders. So knowing this information, investigators decide to confront Henry about this.
Okay. Any suggestion on how I did it? Did you go to a store to pick up a part? Did you talk to anybody? Did anybody come visit you? Anything like that? Did a neighbor stop in your house? Anything like that that could help me?
Buy lunch. Well, then I'm asking for your cooperation.
Let me ask you this.
My cooperation.
What's your other cell phone number?
I don't have another cell phone.
You got a second phone.
I don't.
You do have a second phone. I know you have a second phone. Okay. I'm 100% positive you have a second phone. Okay. The reason I'm wondering why, the only thing I don't know is why you don't want to tell us about the second phone.
I don't have a second phone. I had a second phone. I don't have one.
Well, where was the other phone? What's the other phone number?
408 something. I don't even remember it by heart.
Okay.
I didn't know it.
Okay.
I don't have another phone though. I got rid of the phone.
What'd you do with it? I mean,
Throw it away.
why'd you throw a phone away?
So I don't need it.
Is that the phone you use to talk to other people?
Yeah.
Okay. Who are you talking to?
Nobody. I say nobody.
Well, I said, you use the phone to talk to other people. He said, yeah. And I said, who are you talking to? He said, nobody. So you're either talking to other people or you're not. I mean.
I'm not talking to anyone. I don't. That's why I say I don't have those phone number.
But you did at one point.
Yeah.
Okay. So who are you talking to?
Friends, females.
Okay. What are the females?
I think that's irrelevant. And that was a while ago. That was before Brandi passed away, or before. That was a long time ago. That don't have anything to do with today. I don't think that's irrelevant.
After being confronted about the second cell phone, Henry Segura finally admits that he did have a second cell phone, but he no longer had it. When further questioned about the second cell phone, Henry Segura says that essentially it's the phone that he uses to speak to other women. And the main reason that he didn't tell investigators about the second cell phone is because he didn't want his wife to find out that he was cheating on her. Henry Segura was a man living a double life. On one hand, he was a hard-working welder with 2 kids at home. On the other hand, he had no respect for women and had several children with other different women. This was now the second red flag for investigators, as Henry would rather hide his infidelities with other women than finding out who killed his son. When the investigators are analyzing the scene at Brandi's house and collecting evidence, they find out that one thing was missing: Brandi's cell phone. And without Brandi's cell phone, investigators wouldn't be able to tell who the last person she was in contact with and who was the last person she was seen with. Without Brandi's cell phone, investigators had to go to cell phone experts in order to recover her phone number and see any last messages that were on her phone. In doing so, investigators found out that 3 days before Brandi Peters was murdered, she was taunting Henry Segura, telling him that Javante Segura was not his son, and he was stupid for thinking Javante was his. Investigators believe that this what made Henry angry, because at the same time, she was trying to put him in jail for not paying child support for a kid that she was telling him wasn't his. Throughout the investigation, investigators come across Henry Segura's lifelong friend, Calvin Moore. Calvin Moore was also a welder, but was currently abroad working 6-figure jobs in Afghanistan. Investigators reach out to Mr. Moore and question him about the last time he spoke to Henry Segura. He told investigators he spoke to Henry Segura about a week before the murders, and he was talking to him about those 6-figure jobs in Afghanistan. His wife was happy, Henry was happy. Now all he needed was to get the tickets and get the passports ready and go to Afghanistan to do his job as a welder. However, there was a slight problem when doing this process. When you owe child support, your passport flags up, which means you cannot travel or order a new passport if you wanted to. Investigators believe this is what really made Henry Segura angry, as not only did he have 2 children and a wife at home to take care of, but he was also owing child support to 3 different women. Now, Brandi Peters was pestering him and pressuring him to also pay child support for Javante. With all of this pressure mounting and mounting in Henry Segura, it looks like his world was closing in on him. So the only way to get rid of the problem is to make the problem go away.
So by mid-November of 2010, the total amount of retroactive child support would have actually grown from the $20,100 that he owed on that final support order in September. It would have grown then by 2 months of non-payment, so 744 times 2, that would be added to that $20,100 amount.
That's correct.
Okay, so somewhere close to $22,000 at that point is what he's going to owe. And then his monthly amount at that point in November of 2010 that he owed, it says, is $1,637.
That is what was the past due amount, and it's actually added to that $20,000.
Okay.
So he would owe that plus the current support of $744 that was due each month.
Okay. So in total, we're looking at upwards of $22,000, $23,000 that he owes Department of Revenue. And by November of 2010, there had been 6, total notices sent to the defendant informing him of what he owed.
Yes.
And he'd also been informed, as we saw through these notices, by mid-November of 2010 that his tax return was going to be taken, right?
Yes.
That there was going to be a lien on his property.
Correct.
That his driver's license or professional licenses would be suspended or revoked.
That's correct.
And that he could go to jail if he didn't pay.
That's correct.
And does Department of Revenue also restrict a person's ability to get a passport if they owe a substantial amount of child support?
Yes, we do.
Tell us about that.
If you owe more than $2,500 in arrears, we certify your with Department of State that you owe that balance, and you're not able to get a passport until you either do a written agreement with us or work out some arrangement with us.
Okay. And did you tell us the amount, I'm sorry, that you...
$2,500.
So if you owe more than $2,500, you can't get a passport and leave the country?
Correct.
All right. And he, I mean, obviously owed about $20,000 more than that.
That's correct.
Did Brandi Peters call the Department of Revenue to check on the status of her case against Mr. Segura and the payments during the week leading up to Friday, November 19th of 2010?
Yes.
Okay. What day did she call Department of Revenue to check on the case and the payments?
That would have been, I'm trying to remember. Need to look at the actual notes. It'll give me the date.
All right, so I just have a couple of questions regarding how a non-custodial parent like Henry Segura might get out of owing his child support, might not have to pay it anymore. We saw that he wrote those letters, but what if he came into your office and he said, look, you know, got my own DNA test here, here's the results, this is not my child. Would he still have to pay that $23,000 that he owes?
Yes, he would.
Okay. And is that because that is the total amount in arrears that he's owed since the child's born?
It's actually because even though you're bringing in a DNA test, he is still considered the legal father, and until he goes to court and disestablish paternity, he would still be obligated for everything that we've advised him he is obligated to pay.
Okay. So there would have to be some type of court proceeding where someone said, despite you signing the birth certificate, we've checked all these tests, there would have to be some type of court order and proceeding to establish that.
That's correct.
Okay. And he would still owe that arrearage amount from the time the child was born?
Yes.
He wouldn't have to pay going forward?
Correct.
Okay. If that happened.
Correct.
All right. What if the custodial parent, so in this case, Brandi Peters, what if she came in and said, you know, never mind, I don't want Henry Segura to have to pay? Would he still have to pay that $23,000, that total amount?
Yes, because she was receiving benefits from the state of Florida.
Okay, so if she's receiving benefits from the state of Florida, he is required to pay child support.
That's correct.
Okay. What if the child, what if Javante Segura, what if something happened to him? What if he died? Would the defendant still have to pay that $22,000 or $23,000, that total amount?
No, not if the child passes, no.
Because there's no child to pay for then.
Correct.
When trying to solve homicides, the first thing investigators look for is who had the means, the motive, and an opportunity, and Henry Segura had ticked them all. So by now, Henry Segura was now their main suspect. After gathering all the evidence, the investigators believe they have enough to make an arrest. Henry Segura was then arrested in 2011. Henry Segura was arrested in 2011 but had to sit in custody until 2017 when his trial began. Henry Segura's trial lasted nearly 2 weeks before a decision was finally made in the case. Henry Segura's defense attorneys focused on how Henry's DNA was not at the crime scene, meaning he couldn't have possibly done the crime, and that foreign female DNA was also found under Brandi Peters' nail. However, the prosecution mainly relied on how Brandi Peters' cell phone was taken at the crime scene, and that the last person she was in contact with was Henry Segura through his second phone. In In the trial, both parties decided to go for a 12-person jury. And after 2 weeks of presenting evidence, the results were finally in. After all of the evidence that was presented, the jury just didn't believe the prosecution had enough to convict Henry Segura. With the first trial being unsuccessful, the prosecution knew they had to come with stronger evidence to convict Henry Segura. There was no doubt in anyone's mind that in order to prove that Henry Segura committed the crime, they had to find his DNA at the crime scene. However, this wasn't easy for the prosecution, as the defense found foreign DNA at the crime scene belonging to a man called Angel Avilo, and at the same time, a man named James Carlos Santos claimed he ordered the hit on Brandi Peters and the children. Now that the two theories have been presented, there's a case. The defense believes James Carlos Santos ordered the hit due to Brandi Peters not paying a drug debt. However, the prosecution believed that Brandi Peters' pressure on Henry Segura to pay over $20,000 in child support for Javonte was the main reason for this homicide, due to the fact that Henry Segura owed child support to different women and also had a family at home he was taking care of. For the second trial, both parties decided to go for a 6-person jury, as the defense believes that it will be easier to convince 6 people of anything than to convince 12 people of anything.
I was at home all the time. But he made a mistake. He thought he could pull one over the eyes of the Tallahassee Police Department. What they did is they found out he had a separate phone number that he didn't tell them about. And what they did when they checked that cell phone record is they determined he was in fact there at the time that Brandi Peters and the kids were killed. And it goes farther from there. So the question is, once we make the determination what the evidence is going to show you, that Henry Segura had the motive, he had a means, and he had the opportunity to commit these murders, and he did in fact commit them. The next question is, how did we get there?
And like Mr. Fuchs says, I do want to, before I get into any of the attention to this matter, obviously there's a high stakes case before you, and it's important to both the state and the defense. And so your careful attention to the specifics of the evidence and the testimony, as well as the arguments by counsel, is always appreciated. Opening statement is, as probably was apparent from Mr. Fuchs' argument to you, kind of our opportunity to give you a preview of what evidence we anticipate introducing during the trial. In addition to that, though, you're going to hear law from the court, which he'll instruct you about. The only thing that I ask you regarding the court's instructions to keep in mind as we go through the process of introducing evidence in this case is that the ultimate question you're going to be answering at the end of the trial is one of evidence. It's one that depends on the state proving beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt that the defendant is the person who committed this offense. You won't hear any dispute from the defense that this is the most heinous offense that's been committed in Tallahassee. There isn't any argument against that. The problem is that it wasn't Mr. Segura. And I know that because this is a heinous offense, you're going to want to see evidence that not only makes you feel comfortable returning a not guilty verdict, but also puts you at ease with the fact that the state really did fail to meet its burden.
As the trial went on and there was more evidence presented from both sides, the prosecution began to pick out inconsistencies in Henry Segura's story. One of those inconsistencies was that Henry Segura claimed that he was not at Brandi Peters' house the day she was murdered, but cell phone evidence says otherwise. Additionally, cell phone evidence also presented that the day Brandi Peters was murdered, around the same time, Malika Segura was texting Henry Segura, asking him where he was. With new evidence and cell phone data available, Henry Segura then switched his story and said that he was at Brandi Peters' house to have sex with her, but then left. With this twist in Henry Segura's story, it became apparent that he had to be put on the stand if they were to win the case, so that's what the defense attorney decided to do.
Probably an hour or so, a little more. I waited until I seen her mother's truck leave.
Okay. What did you do at that point?
I walked back down the hill, walked to her house, got to the corner, made a left, cut through the neighbor's yard, and went in the house.
Do you know about what time that would have been?
It was close to 5 o'clock, I believe.
Okay. And how long did it take for you and Brandi to hook up?
Not long, about 15, 20 minutes.
And did you utilize any kind of prophylactic?
Yes, sir. I used the condom.
Okay. What was done with the condom and that stuff after y'all had completed your activities?
She threw it in the toilet. I believe she threw it in the toilet. She took it off of me with a paper towel. She went in the bathroom. I heard the toilet flush, so I assumed she threw it in the toilet.
During the cross-examination in the first trial, Henry Segura was cross-examined by the lead prosecutor, John Fuchs. This didn't go too well for the prosecution, as Henry Segura was kind of sizing him up, and he looked like he had a lot of answers for the questions asked. So knowing Henry Segura's disregard for women, they decided to put a female prosecutor for the cross-examination, and this time, it looks like it really worked.
Are not on good terms. She already knows that you've been cheating on her. You have a current girlfriend that you obviously don't care if she knows about. You're saying, she makes me happy, I want to be with her, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So then you could have told police at that point in 2011 the reason that you were at Brandi's house, the legitimate reason. You could have said, I was over there to see my son. I just didn't tell you that because I didn't want Malika to find out that we had sex, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And you didn't do that.
No, I didn't.
And Malika actually filed for divorce from you in July of 2016. And after she was divorced, or after she divorced you, you still didn't go to police and try to say, okay, now she's really out of my life. The real reason I was at her house was because I just didn't want her to find out I was having sex with Brandi, right?
2011, I think it was July, when I went to Minnesota. I cheated on my wife. I met this girl. We started talking. I would refuse to call.
And so your answer is no, that you did not tell police that.
Yes, I told the lady Johnson, Investigator Johnson,
You told
over
her
the phone that I was cheating on my wife. I didn't want y'all to find out, and she, excuse me, and she, like I said, she went back and forth, and we was arguing about. She know I killed my son. We're gonna arrest you for killing your son, and I hung up on her.
So your testimony is that you told police in this case over the phone.
Investigator Johnson.
Wait a minute, don't interrupt her question, Mrs. Garrett. Let her finish her question.
She's asking the same question over and over.
Be quiet.
No, she's.
Be quiet. Now, she asks you a question.
Who you pointing at?
You wait till she finishes.
I'm a
the
grown
question
man.
And then answer it, okay?
Yeah.
And she won't interrupt your answer either, because the court reporter can't take down two people at once. Is that clear? Sir?
Yeah, that's very clear.
All right.
Your testimony is that you did tell Officer Johnson or Investigator Johnson that you were at Brandi's home the night of the murders on November 19th.
No, I didn't tell her I was at the home the night of the murders. I told her that I was there that afternoon and we had sex.
Okay, you told them that you were there that afternoon, you had sex, and then you left.
Yes, ma'am.
This cross-examination by the prosecution showed the jury that Henry Segura did not only have a lack of respect for women, but also for authority. So with all of this pressure now mounting on Henry Segura, the defense attorney decided to redirect their attention to the man they claimed ordered the hit on Brandi Peters over a drug debt, James Carlos Santos.
Did you know Brandi Peters?
Yes, sir.
How did you know her?
I met her around 2000 or 2001.
Okay, and what was the nature of your relationship with Ms. Peters?
She transported narcotics for me.
How did she do that?
She would pick up a car in Atlanta or here in Tallahassee and drive to Texas.
How did she become involved transporting drugs for you after you met her?
After having conversations with her a couple of times, I asked her, would she like to make some money? And
Okay. Did you already have an existing drug trafficking organization?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. Was she one of multiple people who transported illegal narcotics for you?
Yes, sir, she was.
And so where would she transport narcotics for you?
To Atlanta, here in Tallahassee, and sometimes Chicago,
Where did she get the drugs from?
Texas.
And you would go with her?
I only went maybe once on the trip with her.
Okay.
Usually somebody else went. Sometimes she went alone.
Now, at some point, you ended up going to prison, correct?
Yes, sir.
Without going into the nature of any communications you had with anybody, were you able to remain in contact with your associates and continue directing your drug trafficking organization?
Yes, sir.
How did you do that?
By cell phone or mail. And
So, how did you plan to have the hit carried out once you had directed that it be done?
well, first I had to get some people here in Tallahassee. I didn't have many guys here, so I had to bring guys from Texas and Atlanta.
Were you able to get anybody local to assist?
Yeah, well, those guys was able to get some local guys.
Okay.
They knew.
Who were the local guys?
I have no idea. I don't know their names, but
Okay.
I just know they was from here.
Now that the defense has presented its theory of James Carlos Santos carrying out the hit on Brandi Peters and her children over a drug debt gone wrong, if the prosecution do want to win this case, they have to divert the attention back to Henry Segura, and they do this by using the autopsy reports from Brandi Peters and her children. The medical report showed that Brandi Peters was shot 9 times with a .32 caliber gun, and one of her twin daughters were also shot in the head by the same gun. But with the first trial going wrong already, the prosecution do not want to leave any doubt inside the jury's heads, so they do this by discrediting Mr. James Carlos Santos.
And Mr. Santos, isn't it also true that at some point you've claimed to be from Nigeria?
No,
No, it's not.
no.
Isn't it true you've also said to the United States Marshal Service that sometimes you hear voices speaking to you?
To the marshals?
Yeah.
No.
Or any other person as far as federal custody?
No.
Air Force Run? Place of birth. What does it say?
Nigeria.
Nigeria, right?
Yes.
All right, so you told somebody from Nigeria, right?
No.
No, you didn't tell them that?
No.
All right. Medical conditions. What does it say?
Chest pains.
The witness in the jury, I'm afraid they're
Oh, I'm sorry.
not to hear what's going on.
I'm sorry.
Chest pains, fainting, dizziness.
What's the next line say?
Claims to sometime hear voices speaking to him.
All right. You're saying you never told anybody that?
No, I'm saying that came from my state record.
So you did tell somebody that? It just came from your state record?
Yeah, that came from the transcripts from Nevada. If you look at my PSI in the feds, everything that they have is a carbon copy of what they have in Vegas. A
Right.
bunch of crap, a bunch of stuff.
So you have told people that you hear voices?
Yeah, a long time ago in Las Vegas, you said the U.S. Marshals, that I told the U.S. Marshals that. I never told the U.S. Marshals that.
My mistake. But you told people that you hear voices?
Yes,
Okay.
in Vegas, Nevada, yeah.
All right. And at some point you told somebody your place of birth was Nigeria?
Never said that.
Never said that?
No, but I use so many different identities. However, like Silas Selassie, that guy is actually from Nigeria, so maybe they assume that I was him.
Okay.
You know, when I got busted in Miami, I had his driver's license
All right, so you use the identity of...
of 1,000 different people. Silas Selassie, Malik Johnson, Otis Jackson. I've used quite a few different.
And that person is Nigerian.
Yes.
So you're representing yourself to be Nigerian.
No, sir. I represented myself just to be this guy, so I could use his driver's license. That's all.
Okay. Your Honor, this time my name is State Exhibit number 154. And the evidence, please.
Sir, objection. No, that's fine. All right, it'll be admitted.
This is where it says place of birth is Nigerian, correct?
Yes.
And it says your name. correct?
Yes.
Not Silas, what was the other guy's name?
Silas Selassie.
Doesn't say Silas Selassie, does it?
No.
No. You have associates in Nigeria.
Of course, yeah. One of them is the guy whose driver's license I was using.
Are any of your associates the ones that contact me and tell me they may loan me some money through an email?
I don't know about that, but yeah, it's possible.
Okay, it's possible?
Yeah.
All right. Back in 2010, 2011, you were contacted by law enforcement about this case, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you told Investigator Bossio that you did not have Brandi killed, that you actually met her through Kalo Green, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And that you were actually surprised she had been murdered. Well, you told law enforcement officer Investigator Bossio, right?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
All right. And she was actually going to marry you, is what you told Investigator Bossio back in 2010, 2011.
Yeah, I don't recall that.
You don't recall that?
No, sir.
Okay. And she was actually going to travel to Atlanta to get a new car for you. So I think you told us that.
That's the truth. Yes.
Oh, cool. All right.
I know quite a few Leons.
Okay. Do you know somebody by the name of Leon that is associated with your vice lords, your Zetas, or something along those lines that is relevant?
Like I said, I know quite a few of them, yes.
All right.
One of them whose name I might have brought up some years ago.
All right. Who would that be?
His friend, associate of mine, he was in prison.
He's in prison?
He was in prison at the time.
And at time of what?
At the time that I brought his name up.
Okay. Who is he?
He's a vice lord.
All right. What does he do for the vice lords?
Quite a few things. Whatever needs done.
Like what?
He collects money if some money needs to be collected. Distributes narcotics if it needs to be distributed, that thing.
I'm sorry?
He collects money if money needs to be collected or if narcotics need to be distributed, that sort of thing.
So he's kind of a money collector, narcotics guy for you?
Yes.
All right. He's one of those guys that works for you?
No, he don't work for me. He works for the organization.
He works for who?
He works for the organization. He doesn't work personally.
But I thought you were on the board of directors for this organization.
I am, sir.
So he works for you?
Yeah, I'm just one member. I'm just one board member, though. There's 34 other ones.
All right. So he works for you and 34 others?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Isn't it true that at one point you told law enforcement that Leon was actually the hitman that did the killing?
Yes.
You did tell law enforcement that?
Yes, sir.
Didn't tell us that, did you? Earlier?
No.
In fact, you only remember a female you didn't know the name of.
Yes.
Jit, who you confused his real name.
Yes.
And Angel are the only people you knew of.
Because Leon...
Didn't know anybody else, did you?
Leon was not a part of the hit squad, sir.
He wasn't?
No.
All right, but you told law enforcement back in October 18, 2012 that he was, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
All right.
He was in prison at that time. I was trying to keep from having to take the responsibility of this case myself. I thought maybe that I could kind of like, if I could, work things out with my organization so that I wouldn't, be stuck with the burden of this whole situation. It turns out, though, that it didn't work out in my favor.
I understand these stories are kind of hard to keep track of. I get that.
Well, not necessarily.
All right.
Now that the prosecution has painted James Carlos Santos as this narcissist psychopath who claims murders he wasn't involved in, they now divert their attention back to Henry Segura using the autopsy reports. According to the autopsy reporter, it took about 7 pages to document all the injuries on Brandi Peters. It was one of the worst she has ever seen. Brandi Peters was shot with a .32 caliber gun 9 times in the head that you can see her scalp. And one of her twin daughters were also shot in the head. Javante Segura, Henry Segura's son, was drowned in a bathtub with the other twin daughter. One of Henry Segura's lifelong friend, Calvin Moore, also confirmed that he had seen Henry Segura with a .32 caliber gun months before these murders had occurred. But although the evidence against Henry Segura was strong, James Carlos Santos sent Brandi Peter a letter saying,
"It says on the back of this envelope is death before dishonor. Word is bond, bond is life, and a man should give his life before his word fails. Say what you mean and mean what you say. And it says below that, Dear Mr. Mailman, if this letter happens to get lost, just send it to heaven because it's going to an angel. On the other side it says, I thank God for you, and I ask that he look out for you and our 3 little angels.
Although this may be very strong evidence that James Carlos Santos could have been involved, a day after the murders when investigators asked him about it, he said that he had no involvement and he knew nothing about Brandi Peters being murdered. After speaking to many inmates, what investigators find out is that James Carlos Santos goes around other inmates' rooms and sees who they're messaging. Coincidentally, a man that was in prison had Brandi Peters' contact details, so with that opportunity, James Carlos Santos started asking Brandi Peters for marriage and sending her love letters. And that's how investigators believe that James Carlos Santos had Brandi Peters' home details. The Segura's second trial lasted about 2 weeks, and after all of those weeks of gathering evidence, the verdict was finally in.
Florida versus Henry Segura, we the jury find as follows: as to count 1 of the indictment concerning the murders of Brandi Peters, the jury finds the defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. As to count 2, we the jury find as follows: as to count 2 of the indictment concerning the murder of Tamaya Peters, the defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. As to count 3, we the jury find the defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. As to count 4, we the jury find the defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. It's been dated and signed by the foreperson. We wish to have the jury polled.
Yes, sir.
All right. Polling means I need to confirm with each of you that this is your individual verdict as well as the verdict of the jury as a whole. Juror number 1, is this your verdict as well as the verdict of the jury as a whole?
Yes, it is.
Number 2 juror?
Yes.
Number 3 juror?
Yes.
Number 4 juror?
Yes.
Number 5 juror?
Yes.
Number 6 juror?
Yes.
The jury has unanimously confirmed the verdict. It appears to be in order. It will be filed. I know y'all are ready to go, but I'm gonna ask you to go back into the jury room for just a few moments. I need to discuss with the attorneys exactly how we're gonna proceed forward, so we can give you instructions before you leave if you've retired at the jury.
This was a brutal murder that tore a town down into pieces, but in the end, justice was finally served.